CJ Stroud, yes, he was a rookie. He ranked number 2 in EPA per pass attempt, number 2 in the NFL in EPA per pass attempt when he threw the ball on these early downs. So they need to lean into the passing game more.
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It's a Monster Monday presented, of course, by DraftKings. Use the code Ross. Always DraftKings DK Sportsbook. How about the fact that we get the man, Warren Sharp, for our big show today, which is epic. His book is ridiculous. We'll get into that. It's a new week, which means as long as I remember, I'll be sending out signed autographs and or videos to people that rate and review the show or email me, take advantage of a sponsor and email me, or make a YouTube comment and subscribe, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. But I don't know unless you show me, Ross at RossTucker.com. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
Absolutely love every time I get this guy on any of my shows. He joins us on the Even Money podcast pretty much every year after the schedule comes out, because nobody's better when it comes to the schedule than Warren Sharp. Heck, now when I have the scheduling coordinators from the NFL come on the show, as they do on an annual basis after the schedule comes out, I mention things that Warren says and they respond to him. That's the type of juice this guy has. People in the league pay attention to his numbers and they pay attention to his book. Check him out on social media at Sharp Football. Sharp Football Analysis, does a lot of stuff for Sports Grid and The Ringer. He is extremely impressive, as is his book, which for those of you watching us on YouTube or on the DK Network, this might be the thickest book I've ever had. I mean, this is, how many pages is it, Warren?
The printed book is 552 pages.
552 pages. And I'll ask again at the end, but how can fans get their hands on a copy?
Yeah, so this is like the work of 4 months of analysis of the season, and I try to distill it down, and you can get your own copy at sharp.football. And I'm actually going to give you a code for your show, Ross. If you just enter the coupon code Ross at the website, you'll get 50% off the book. So it drops it down to just over $15. And, I encourage anybody, go check it out. And if you don't think it's worth that $15 or so, if you think that this isn't helpful, I'll give you your money back, because I think you're going to be blown away by the content, the research that we've done here. And you'll be able to use this now to study for the season, but also, Ross, I think during the season to go back and look at some of those lines. I know on your Even Money podcast with Steve Fezzik, a lot of times you guys talk about some of the look ahead lines and like, what was this line before? Well, I've got the lines for every single game throughout the season in this book as of right now. And so you can go back and see, wow, this line was, -3. Now it's all the way up to -6. Is this, line move warranted? You can also use it for rest edges. It's something that we talked about, earlier on the Even Money podcast, when we talked about the NFL schedule, right, with Mike North and rest variances between teams. This gives you every single rest edge, every single game for each team. So there's a lot of things that you're going to be able to use this for during the season. It's not just getting ready for the season.
Yeah, it's almost like not necessarily just a book. It's like a resource guide. Mm-hmm. There's sections on fantasy football for those of you who play fantasy football. There's a lot of betting content in there for those of you that are into that. But I would say, even if you're not into betting or fantasy at all, there's just a wealth of really interesting information about your team. No matter who your team is, every team is in there. But before we get to the team stuff, Warren, I guess I'm curious. You're one of the best out there. It's funny, when I talk with Greg Cosell, I always ask him for trends he's seeing schematically, whereas you have the numbers and the data for trends you're seeing, whether it's more of a certain coverage or more play action pass or more whatever, right? More whatever the case might be. Tell me what you discovered from 2023 that you would call like a describe as a league-wide trend, really on either side of the ball.
Yeah. So you know the way the defenses have been making adjustments to try to slow offenses down. They're trying to prevent the big plays. They're trying to prevent quick scores. And one of the things, it's not just in 2023, but it's getting worse in 2023. But what we have been seeing is more and more offenses are passing the ball behind the line of scrimmage. They're using that as a way to just kind of get the ball out of the quarterback's hands. The defense is preventing the big play anyways. Let's just try to get the ball into the hands of a playmaker and make something happen. And that's logical. The issue is, though, that the way the defenses are playing, it's very easy for them to rally up and make those plays on the football at that point. And what we have found is that more frequently, at a higher rate, year after year, offenses are throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage. But if you look at last season, for example, and you look at a metric like EPA, so every single team has a negative EPA on passes behind the line of scrimmage. But only 3 teams have a negative EPA when they target beyond the line of scrimmage. So think about that for a second. The very best team in the NFL has minus EPA per play when they throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage. The very best team, the very best offenses. Look at Kansas City, look at San Francisco, any of them. When they're throwing the football behind the line of scrimmage, it's negative EPA. But even if some of the worst teams in the NFL are throwing the ball beyond the line of scrimmage, they have positive EPA. And so these offensive coordinators need to figure out ways to get a little bit more aggressive against these defenses and try to challenge them a little bit more, because these passes behind the line of scrimmage, they would be better off, Ross, calling a run play. Just, run plays have more efficiency. And you know me, I'm very much so a pass first kind of guy, but run plays generally are even having more efficiencies in some of these passes that are thrown behind the line of scrimmage. And so this is something that offensive coordinators need to understand, that this is not the answer. Even though they're doing it more and more, this is not the answer. And they need to come up with different ways to try to attack these defenses.
It's interesting, Warren. 2 things on that. Number one, I know the answer to this, but a lot of people don't. EPA. Explain EPA.
Expected points added. So that basically just means, are you getting yourself closer to scoring points? Do you have a higher ability to score points because of a certain play? The expected points, did you add positive expected points with the result of a play, or do you have negative expected points, meaning you took yourself further away from scoring a play? There's other metrics that you can look at, like success rate, but EPA is one of the ones that's a little bit more widely recognized over the last 5 to 10 years as a statistic that more closely correlates with the best efficiency in the NFL.
The other thing I was going to say is this is one of the reasons why I love bringing you on and I love your book, is because anecdotally it feels like bubble screens or quick like look passes out to the perimeter, it feels like they're having less and less success with every passing year. That used to be one of the answers, is, okay, they've got one guy up and one guy off. We got 2 receivers out there. Just throw it out there real quick to the one. The other guy blocks the other guy. And, then you're one-on-one in space against a guy who's off the ball or whatever, right? Or, there's no safety over there, so he's got to play back. So just throw him the ball quick. The defenses have done a much better job of tackling those guys and stuffing those plays. It used to be the thought it's an easy 4 or 5 yards and maybe more. That is not the case anymore on those bubble screens or quick look passes to the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where I love when the data backs up what your eyes are telling you. Maybe your eyes saw it first, and then I can verify things with the data. This is the best part about football, where you're able to really put things into perspective. But the thing that that I love to do, Ross, is I love to come out on Twitter and throw up an interesting tweet or an interesting stat. and it's really easily digestible. And so people are like, wow, and it gets a lot of engagement. This is one that's harder to really like type up and share quickly, because it's just mind-boggling to me that all 32 teams, even the very best ones, when they throw those passes behind the line of scrimmage, have negative EPA. It's just wild to think. And you're absolutely right. It used to have more success, but the way the defenses are playing, they're slowing that down a little bit more. And that used to be the answer, right? Once we pivoted from, well, let's run the ball a billion times a game, to like passing is more efficient, some coaches started to come up with the thought process, well, this is just an extension of the run game, right? Let's just throw the ball here. It's not a run play, but it's going to function like a run play, but it's going to give us the advantage of a pass play, the advantage of that efficiency. That's not the case any longer. And teams need to make those adjustments and figure it out pretty quickly, because I would advocate in many situations, if you're looking to do that, and you see the defense and they're making adjustments, and you don't think at the line of scrimmage that this pass play that you've got designed will have success, then I would audible to a run play as quick. Like if your plan is to throw a pass behind the line of scrimmage and the defense has that covered, automatically audible to a run play. And but the preference almost would be the quarterback just scramble with the football. Quarterback scrambles have the most efficiency of any play in the NFL. No matter what play it is, a quarterback scramble will have the highest efficiency of any play call in the league, especially those quarterback scrambles where it's a designed pass play and they just go and run through an open run lane. Don't risk throwing the pass. You think you might have it. You think you might get a 7, 8 to 12 yard gain. Those quarterback scrambles on an open run lane, if the quarterback just drops back and then takes off, those plays are averaging like 8.5 yards, which is more than any quarterback's average yards per attempt anyways. And they've got a very high floor as well. They're not going to result in potential turnovers. So like these passes behind the line of scrimmage, like you mentioned, the bubble screens, etc., just they need to get away from those.
That is a really interesting point about the quarterback scrambles, and kind of has me thinking. I never have to think, though, Warren, about what beer I want to drink. It's Labatt Blue Light. Absolutely delicious. Highly recommend it with friends, living life to the power of we. Always enjoy responsibly. Beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. All right, Warren, you got me thinking there. I feel like if you're a smart OC, that there should be more plays where it's like one read and go. Like a drop back pass, one read, if it's not there, go, because of how efficient some of that scrambling is. Is there another one? So we got the passes behind the line of scrimmage, no good. Quarterback scrambles, good. Give me something else. Give me one more that really jumped out to you.
Well, this one is less so like a league-wide trend, so I don't know if you want me to go here, but it relates to a team that everybody is expecting to take that next step this year, and that's with the Houston Texans. So I don't know if you want me to dig into a team. So one thing that was uncanny to me, I know you used to be in DC. You played in DC. I don't know that did you ever play for Mike Shanahan in DC, or was he?
No, it was Schottenheimer, Spurrier, and Joe Gibbs.
Okay, so
I'm old, dude. I'm old.
Yeah, that's okay. So I am as well. So Mike Shanahan was in DC, and obviously we all know the story about that coaching tree that was there with him. Obviously Kyle was there, but so was Bobby Slowick, and he has been following around Kyle Shanahan since 2011. When he's been in the league, he's been coaching along with Kyle Shanahan, except for when he took over for the Houston Texans last year as their offensive coordinator. And it was uncanny to me when I went back and looked at some of the rates, how he was trying to mimic Kyle Shanahan, and he was mimicking him so closely that like my eyes were opened. But he needs to make some adaptations in 2024 if they want to reach their ceiling, and here's why. So the pass rate on early downs last year, the Houston Texans were 52% pass, which was 27th in the league. The 49ers were 51% pass, which was 28th in the league. So basically they're right there neck and neck in terms of low pass rate, very high run rate, almost top 5 run rates on these early downs in the first half of games. So that this is what their plan is. This is the core philosophy of their offense. But they were running the ball a lot into loaded boxes because they were pretty predictable based upon their personnel. And that's okay for the 49ers. But let me just give you the percentages here. The 49ers were dealing with loaded boxes on 65% of their runs, and the Houston Texans at 67% of their runs. These are number 4 and number 5 in the NFL. So once again, very close in terms of being similar. But the 49ers, when they ran the ball, ranked number 1 in every single metric. EPA, success rate, yards per carry. I think they were averaging like 5.5 yards per carry on their runs in the first half. They've got a good run blocking offensive line, and they've got Christian McCaffrey, obviously. The Houston Texans, even though they were trying to mimic the rate of running and the running into loaded boxes, we don't care, we're still going to do it. They were down at number 27 in success rate, 24 in EPA, and 22 in yards per carry. They were averaging only 3.8 yards per carry on these run plays. So it was not successful. And the thing is, CJ Stroud, yes, he was a rookie. He ranked number 2 in EPA per pass attempt, number 2 in the NFL in EPA per pass attempt when he threw the ball on these early downs. So they need to lean into the passing game more. They've got more weapons. I know they brought in a new running back in Joe Mixon, but they can't become infatuated with that and try to mimic what the San Francisco 49ers were doing. They've got a much more explosive passing attack. They've got the ability in CJ Stroud, who I think is a very dynamic and special quarterback. And the other thing with Stroud, massive splits when he's pressured versus when he's not pressured. And that's pretty expected for any younger quarterback. And just because he's in year 2 doesn't mean he's all of a sudden going to become immune to pressure. He's probably going to still have pretty similar splits. He's going to be much worse when he's pressured. But when is pressure most likely to be predictable? It's on those third downs. So if you're running a lot on early downs and not gaining many yards, and now you're asking CJ Stroud to pass the ball on third down. I mean, he was Superman last year. He went into that booth. He put on his cape. He converted these third downs. He was dynamic. He pushed the ball down the field. Everybody was super impressed by what he did last year. But you can't bank on this offense just continually overcoming poor early down efficiency with great third downs against pressure blitzes and whatnot on CJ Stroud. They need to move a little bit away from the Kyle Shanahan, let's run the ball into early boxes. We don't care if we're getting bad looks. We're going to run it, and then we're going to pass off of that. It's not going to be as successful if your run game is not picking up 5.5 yards per carry like the 49ers were.
Wow, that is really interesting because we all saw what the Texans offense did last year. I'm sure they know those statistics. If they didn't, they should get your book. But if they adjust, and they have Stephon Diggs now, and Tank Dell's healthy again, if they adjust and throw it more on early downs, they could really be something. Give me one more. Is there something else from a team perspective that, you were blown away by a certain team's offense or defense, either positively or negatively in terms of some statistic?
Well, the one thing I'll just say, I'll throw a couple of quick ones out there. New York Jets, I'm just super impressed by the way that Robert Saleh continues to get that defense to play at a high level when the offense gives them really no hope. I mean, this team for the last several years has had absolutely no hope. And they're still racking up like 7 wins or so. If that offense can then provide a little bit more efficiency and a little bit more dependability, flip field position a little bit better for that defense, I think, I'm obviously very excited to see what's going to happen with the offense in New York. And another offense that I'm excited to see again this year, which is not as big of a night and day switch like the Jets were, but the Detroit Lions, I'm just excited that this team plays 14 of their 17 games in domes. They only go outside 3 times. One of those games is in San Francisco, obviously, Santa Clara, California, but it's California nevertheless. We're not talking about New England. We're not talking about New York. We're not talking about a cold weather city late in the season. This offense, I'm excited to see the way that they function from a betting perspective. You probably know it, Ross, but we used to bet against Jared Goff's small hands, especially when weather was in the forecast. He's always impacted by rain or difficult weather conditions worse than other quarterbacks because of that hand size. And the fact that this team gets to play 14 of their 17 games in domes this year, I'm excited to see what this offense's upside is. And I think defensively from that team, one of the things that surprised me the most in the book was looking at the Detroit Lions defense and their blitz rates with Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator. If this team just dialed back their blitz rate, they had almost a league average pass defense, but they were blitzing at one of the highest rates in the NFL, and it was putting these defenders on islands, and they just got burned through the air left and right, and they gave up so much efficiency when they were sending extra rushers. It really wasn't helping them get a ton more pressure. They didn't really need to do that. And I think this year, they obviously addressed those concerns with their secondary in the draft. Their first pick was a cornerback. Their second pick was a cornerback. They brought in another DB, I think from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They understood we've got to fix our secondary. But the other way to do it from just a coaching and a play calling perspective, dial back the blitz rate. I still think they're going to get more sacks this year because they had a high pressure rate but a low sack rate last year. I think that's going to even itself out. That's going to regress, and we're going to see more sacks from them. But they don't need to send blitzes, and their pass defense will be much better. Couple that with an offense that's playing indoors for 14 games. I think this team's going to be really fun to watch this year.
You've got to check this guy out on social media at Sharp Football and buy this book. It is very, very cool. It's the 2024 football preview from Sharp Football Analysis. Go to sharp.football, and he even got you a code just for our listeners. Code Ross, 50% off. I didn't even know that till he said that 10 minutes ago. Warren, you are the man. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you for the book, man. I love it.
Happy to do so, Ross. Enjoy the read.
Love me some Warren Sharp, and love me some Smirnoff vodka. Saturday night, I'm at the beach. They have these fancy drinks called 302s at this place I'm at. And there was originally a different liquor that was scheduled to be in the drink. I said, no. I'll take a Smirnoff vodka, please. In that drink. It was like a frozen drink. It was actually delicious. Strawberry banana. It was like a smoothie with vodka. That was incredible. Thank you, Smirnoff, for being the world's #1 vodka. Grab a bottle of Smirnoff at your local retailer and head to Smirnoff.com to find recipes of delicious cocktails perfect for game day. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff No. 21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Please do not share with anyone under legal drinking age.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, Ross, big contract news. Bucks left tackle Tristan Wirfs, he gets a 5-year, $140 million extension with $88 million of that guarantee, making him the highest paid offensive lineman in NFL history. Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill, he gets himself a 3-year, $90 million extension.
Well, so well-deserved for both guys. Wirfs was good right away and played right, and then showed he could play left now. Just a really, really good pick by Jason Light. Getting that 5th year for the Bucks is gigantic. And as for Tyreek Hill, I saw where he was on the NFL list as the #1 player in the league. I don't know if I'd go that far ahead of Mahomes, but he is one of the rare players that makes a difference in pretty much every game he's in.
The Cardinals, they've gave linebacker Zaven Collins a contract extension, while edge rusher B.J. Ojulari, he'll be out for the season with a torn ACL.
That's rough. Jack, he might be their best edge rusher. He kind of finished with a flourish last year, so to not have him for the whole year, that's tough for Jonathan Gannon and that defense. They're trying to get it to be better, but they need guys that can actually get after the quarterback.
Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert, he's in a boot for 2 weeks with plantar fascia foot injury, but he's expected to be okay for the opener. While Titans wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, he's out 4 to 6 weeks with knee injury, and the team, they signed safety Quandre Diggs.
Diggs is back. Always loved the way Diggs played. Hopkins, 4 to 6 weeks, especially for a guy at his age, is always a little bit concerning. Just because he comes back, how will he play, right? You're always worried about guys when they get to a certain age about how well they'll play, period, let alone coming off an injury. It did sound like Dr. Chow, Pro Football Doc, SportsInjuryCentral.com, was optimistic about Justin Herbert. So I liked that part of it. that Dr. Chow thinks he'll be fine. The last thing I'll say is the Hall of Fame game. There was more scoring than I thought. It was so fun to see actual players out there. Davis Mills doing some good things. Brett Rippon. How about Colin Johnson? Massive receiver for the Bears. And then it got canceled in the third quarter because of storms. That was not cool. Missed opportunities for a bunch of young men. That always bothers me. I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. I love love. I love relationships. I love family. I love emotions. My Front Page. I love sending you guys autographs. MyFrontPageStory.com is all of those things. BackOfficeScheduler.com, HumanHeadNYC.com, Sport